Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. Today I am bringing you my September wrap-up. This month was my first month on BookTube and I had a blast. I had a lot of fun vlogging my reading experiences during this month. It was a little bit of a weird month. I didn't have a car, I started a new job, I started BookTube, kind of figuring out all of the equipment and how to video and where to film and how to do the lighting. There's a lot to think about, but I have been having so much fun, and this month I managed to read a whole lot of books. So without further ado, here's what I read. The first book that I read in September was The Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon. This was the entrance to the novice path for me, and it was the big book prompt in Becca's Bookopoly. This book is an epic fantasy. It is an amazing, well thought out world containing multiple religions, containing dozens of various well thought out characters. There is a sapphic romance, and it follows all of these characters as they struggle to defeat this great evil that is reawakening in the world. It has dragons, it has magic, it has intrigue and betrayal and love and friendship and all of the things that you could hope for from an epic fantasy. This book is 800 and something pages, minus the glossary. Yeah, it is about 800 pages long, but it does not feel like it is that long. You fly through this. The writing is absolutely beautiful and fast-paced and easy to digest. So if you're afraid to pick this book up because of how ginormous it is, don't be. It goes so quickly. It's easy to follow, and it was definitely one of the #1 books that I have read this year. So 5 out of 5 stars for sure. The second book that I read this month was The Fellowship of the Ring. This book filled the prompts in Magical Readathon for the Ashhorn Tree, which was a book that is at the top of your TBR, something that you have been dying to read, and I chose that because I have been wanting to read this illustrated version since last Christmas. And then it filled the prompt in Becca's Bookopoly for humans, with a story with human characters in it. This took me quite a while to get through, even though I've read it multiple times. I found myself really wanting to pick up books that I hadn't read before, so I think that was my mistake, was picking up something that I had already read. But I do not regret reading this at all. I have been wanting to get to this edition specifically. This is the HarperCollins illustrated, just hit myself in the face with this ginormous tome. It is the HarperCollins Illustrated Special Edition, and it is beautiful. It has a map in the beginning like all of them do, and the illustrations are lovely. I listened to the audiobook for the very first time this go around as well, which was a new experience, and I just loved getting back into this world. I loved remembering details from the story that I had forgotten. I tend to watch the movies more often than I reread the books, and I really enjoyed this go around. I always feel like picking up The Lord of the Rings and entering Middle-earth at around this time, September or October, because Frodo embarks on his grand adventure in the autumn of Middle-earth. So it always gives me those vibes. 5 out of 5 stars as usual. Highly recommend. It is a little bit more of a dense novel to get into, but if you enjoyed the movies or have any interest in epic classic fantasy, this is definitely one to pick up. The third book that I read was The Box in the Woods by Maureen Johnson. This was an excellent story. It is the 4th installment in Maureen Johnson's Truly Devious series. The first 3 books follow Stevie Bell, who goes to school at this prestigious academy called Ellingham Academy, and she's an amateur sleuth. So her goal in life is to eventually become a detective of some sort and solve cold cases. In the first 3 books, she solves a very old murder kidnapping mystery, and in this 4th book, we are thrown back into her world again, but this time she has solved the previous murder and has made a name for herself as a detective, and somebody from a summer camp reaches out to her in the hopes that she can pick up this cold case of 4 murdered teens that had happened in the 60s, I believe, 60s or 70s. So we get to follow her on her journey to a summer camp. It has classic horror summer camp spooky story vibes, and it was absolutely everything that I was hoping that it would be. You jump right back into those characters. Her friends are a part of the story as well, and you get to learn more about them, and the story was just very, very well done. I sat down and read it in like 2 sittings. It was wonderful. So I gave it a 5-star rating. This book fulfilled Becca's Bookopoly prompt of mood read. The 4th book that I picked up was Katherine House by Elizabeth Thomas. This story was a little bit outside of my comfort zone. I know that it is classified as dark academia, and I really haven't read very much dark academia. This story follows Inez, who is accepted to go to a college named Katherine House, and in this college you have to agree to cut off all contact from your previous life. So you literally have to go into this school and have no contact with the outside world at all for 3 years, and you commit to that in order to be able to go to this school. This story has a very dreamy, atmospheric feel. As you're going through the novel, you're seeing it through the eyes of the main character, who has undergone a lot of trauma and who is also being brainwashed along the way. And so from her perspective, everything seems a little disconnected and fuzzy and unclear. And that is just part of the experience of reading this book. So if you are someone who is looking for very clear answers and very clear plot, this is probably not a great book for you. This is a book for people who enjoy kind of dreamy, atmospheric reads. I ended up giving this book a 3 out of 5 stars. I would definitely recommend it to anybody who is interested in kind of strange, dark academia, anybody who is interested in kind of the dreamy, surreal aspect of storytelling. There's definitely a lot to be said for this book. There is also trigger warnings for cult situations, so be mindful of that as well as you go into this book. Katherine House fulfilled my Becca's Bookopoly prompt of the lowest rated book on my TBR. It came out at a 3 stars on Goodreads. The 5th book that I read was Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. This has been compared often to Katherine House. I know that they have a lot of parallels. It is definitely a lot darker, so if you're interested in dark academia, then this is definitely for you. This story follows a young woman named Galaxy Stern. She goes by Alex for short, and she is invited to become a part of the secret society at Yale University based on the fact that she is able to see ghosts. She is also able to see them in color. In this magical world, ghosts are generally only seen in black and white, and so they're called grays. But Alex, for whatever reason, has the ability to see them in color. So she has been invited to join the secret society in Yale, and she ends up getting caught up in this strange, dark world of ritual and magic. There's a murder on campus, and as she begins to investigate this murder, she begins to reveal deeper secrets that she did not expect. So this is definitely a very well-written book. It is dark, it has magic, it has very well-developed characters. I really enjoyed the process of reading this book. I did give it a 4 stars. There were some parts of it that were just a little bit too intense for my liking. There are some serious trigger warnings for multiple cases of sexual abuse, so as you go into reading this book, please be mindful of that and check those trigger warnings and make sure that you're being taking care of yourself in that process. So Otherwise, I would definitely recommend it. Ninth House filled the Aurelium Arc prompt for the Magical Readathon, as it was a book in a school setting, and it filled the hyped prompt for Becca's Bookopoly. Book number 6 on my TBR was The Graveyard Book by Neil Gaiman. This book came up as the prompt for Humans, once again, in Becca's Bookopoly, and it fulfilled the prompt for The Ruin of Sky on the Novice Path, which was to read a book with supernatural elements. The Graveyard Book was a delight to read. It was this frolicking ramble through the life of a young boy who is growing up in a cemetery. After his family was murdered, he, through a series of unexpected events, ends up in a cemetery and in the care of the local ghosts who live there. So he grows up in the cemetery. He has to stay hidden because the murderer of his family is still out there biding his time and waiting to be able to find him and finish the job. So there is some dark elements to this story, but overall it is delightfully creepy. It has wonderful characters that you fall in love with. The boy is he goes by Bod, but his real name is Nobody. The ghosts named him Nobody. And it's just fun. It's just a fun middle grade that is excellent if you are looking for something spooky but not really wanting something scary. It's a great in-between book for that. I ended up giving The Graveyard Book 4 stars. I highly, highly recommend that you check out the full cast version of the audiobook for this as well. It was so much fun to listen to. The next book that I read was Royal Assassin by Robin Hobb, which is the second book in the Farseer trilogy, which is her first trilogy in the Elderling universe of her writing. And I am in love with these books already. I can tell that this is going to be a favorite of mine. I love her writing. I love her character development, and I would absolutely recommend anything written by her to anybody who loves reading epic fantasy. So this second book follows a young man named Fitzchivalry, who is the bastard son of a prince, and he has been adopted by that king, his grandfather, to be an assassin, basically. He has been trained in being a royal assassin for the king. And this second novel is taking place in a point in the history of this world where they are being attacked by raiders. And these raiders are somehow, we're not sure how, but they attack and kidnap people on the villages along the coast. And when they return those kidnapped people, they have lost all sense of humanity. They have no sense of morality. They have no memory of their loved ones, and they are basically, it's described in the story as they're like less than animals, almost like not having a soul. So they are very dangerous. They attack anybody for any reason. This is a very serious concern because the raiders are gaining numbers and they are attacking more often, and they don't know how to stop them. So this is the main conflict in the story. And then on the other hand, the kingdom is facing treason within its own walls, and so this kingdom is on the verge of breaking down completely, and Fitz is in the middle of all of this chaos trying to figure out how to keep everything together. So it is a very, very interesting, well-written, wonderful book. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars, and I am very much looking forward to the last book in this trilogy, and I'll be reading that next month. Royal Assassin filled the Becca's Bookopoly prompt of Becca recommendation because this is a series that she has been reading for her book club. Becca of the Books on YouTube. If you don't know who she is, she's amazing. Go check out her channel. I'll leave her link below, as I have for the last month, because I've been doing her Bookopoly as well. And then for the Magical Readathon, the Royal Assassin comes in as the prompt for the Tower of Rumination, which was a 5-star prediction. The next book that I read was The Ones We're Meant to Find. Try not to hit myself again with it. The Ones We're Meant to Find by Joan He. This book, I wasn't sure how I felt about it after I finished it. This book is set in a world where the earth has basically been destroyed by people. The environment has gotten to the point where it is so toxic that it is poisonous to the people who live upon it, and they are struggling to survive with the materials that they have. The world has been classified into different ranks. The people with higher ranks are people who have lived their lives and whose family and ancestors before them have lived their lives in such a way that protects the environment and tries to prevent this ultimate outcome from happening. And these privileged people get to live in what they call eco-cities that hover above the poisoned oceans. And in these eco-cities, they are protected by special shields from the toxins in the air. And they live in their little bubble above the earth where they are protected from the natural disasters that are happening as well. The lower ranking people are those who live their lives, or their parents and grandparents lived their lives in a way that was detrimental to the environment. So these people are basically left to earth to fend for themselves as best they can. And the vast majority, millions, billions of people are living on the earth struggling to survive in this situation where the very air that they breathe is poisonous. So this is a very divided world. And in the midst of this world, there are two sisters shown on the cover who are separated, and they are trying to find each other. This is a very interesting book. I was very confused when it first began, and as it went on, I thought I understood what was happening, and then the twist at the end definitely took me by surprise. I kind of saw it coming right before it happened, but it was still very well done. And I'm not sure how I feel about the ending. It's a little frustrating, but I think she meant for it to be. So I personally really enjoyed this book. I gave it a solid 4 stars. It is a young adult. That's usually the most a young adult will get from me, unless I absolutely love it. But I would very highly recommend this book, especially if you are interested in any kind of environmental protection, or interested in climate change and anything like that. This would be a very good one to pick up. The Ones We're Meant to Find was, The Ones We're Meant to Find filled the chance prompt for Becca's Bookopoly-thon, and it also was the prompt for the Mists of Solitude in the Magical Readathon, as it was the standalone book that I chose. The final book that I read was The Wrong Family by Taryn Fisher. This filled the who prompt on Becca's Bookopoly, which was to read a book that I had never heard of before, that I had never heard of other people talking before, that I had never heard other people talking about, English. And I gave this book 3 stars. I expected it to be more of a thriller. The cover led me to believe that it would be suspenseful. This book was more tragic than anything else. I enjoyed the character development. I enjoyed the ride. The story was well thought out. You are following the point of view of 2 different characters. The first character is Winnie, and she is a wife and mother living in a home, and there is some dark secret that she's hiding that gradually comes to light as the story progresses. And the second point of view that you're following is Juno, and she is a middle-aged homeless woman, maybe older than middle-aged. I'm not exactly sure how old she is, but she's older. She's an older homeless woman who is slowly piecing together the puzzle pieces of this secret that Winnie is carrying around. So you bounce back and forth between these 2 characters, and then the end, it's really well written because there are elements of what's going to happen as you're reading, but it's never really the focal point. And then all of a sudden it's just bam, things are happening and it's horrible and it's tragic and it's stressful, and then it's over. So I really enjoyed it. I think that it was a solid, fast-paced, easy read. And so if you are looking for something to cleanse your palate, if you've been reading a lot of really heavy books, or if you just need a different genre to get yourself out of a reading slump, I think this would be a great one to pick up. I think that it's definitely worth reading. It wasn't my favorite thriller ever, but I am glad that I read it. So I gave it a solid 3 stars. There was one prompt that I didn't get to, and that was my feed scroll prompt for Becca's Bookopoly. I had originally planned to read A Deal with the Elf King for that prompt, but I ended up DNFing that book. I really disliked it. I then did another feed scroll and ended up with A Lesson in Vengeance, which I am desperate to read. So excited to read this. This is my beautiful Owl Crate copy of this book. But I just did not have time at the end of the month to read it. I managed 9 books in total. Some of them had very hefty page counts, including The Priory of the Orange Tree, The Lord of the Rings, and Royal Assassin were all quite hefty. So I'm proud of myself for the first month of reading that I got done on BookTube. I will be filming and releasing my October TBR soon, and I look forward to continuing to be a part of this community next month. If you liked my video, please remember to like and subscribe for more content from me, and leave a comment below with your favorite book from my September reading, if you've read or agree with any of the ratings that I've given. And if you're here and you don't feel like commenting or you don't have much to say, just leave a little book emoji down below for me. I hope you guys have a great day. Thanks for joining me. Talk to you soon.
Yesterday there was sun.